You know that your coaching gets results. But when someone lands on your website or Instagram, do they instantly see a business they can trust with thousands of dollars for their investment? Or are you just another brand like everybody else that they just scroll on past? Well, today we're talking about how your visuals impact trust, credibility, and sales. And to talk about this, I've brought in the perfect guest to break it down. Today, I'm joined by Zainab, a brand identity designer with over 7 years of experience in the creative industry. She helps women entrepreneurs and service providers turn their vision into brands that feel right, look professional, and get remembered. She's also an official Canva creator for India, designing templates and resources that make great design accessible for entrepreneurs around the world. In this conversation, we're digging into how your brand identity and visuals shape trust, credibility, and of course, sales, and what you need in place before you even start thinking about hiring a designer. If design and visuals have been on your mind, then this is the episode for you. Enjoy this interview with Zainab. All right, thank you so much for joining me here today. I am really looking forward to having this conversation. But before we get into it, how about you introduce yourself for everyone here?
Hi Danielle, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. So I'm Zainab Quresh. I'm a brand designer and I specialize in brand identity design and social media presence. Ideally, I focus on women entrepreneurs and business owners in helping them move from a place of fear to fierce with the help of building their brand and helping them gain some clarity, courage, and confidence.
Yes. And the reason why I wanted to have this conversation with you today, as someone who works in the visual branding, identity, strategy space, I wanted to talk about the role that that plays in overall marketing. And I know that there are a lot of conversations, there are a lot of thoughts. I know that I've had a lot of thoughts about the role that visuals play, but I wanted to talk about the role that it plays with promotion, particularly for high ticket offers, and really that space between when do I go professional, like hire someone else to do it, and at what point am I still like figuring this out, doing it on my own, coming up with something on my own. So that's really where I want to kind of frame this conversation that we have today. But really, let's start off here. A lot of people, when they say like, okay, I need to have like a brand and identity and like all of this stuff, like, explain to us at the bare basic level, like what is a brand, what is an identity, and what does that have to do with selling your offer?
Okay. So brand in like layman terms is your reputation, right? And your brand identity is something you work towards in forming some kind of a brand image, like like a flag. That's kind of an identity of country. So once we establish what you stand for, once we establish what your values and beliefs and everything is, which comes with brand strategy, which is part of the entire branding process, right? And then brand identity normally entails the visual identity, the visuals of the stuff, which we take from the values and everything, whatever that we've discussed in brand strategy and the brand personality and everything, we take those words and convert it into visuals. And that becomes the identity that people see, which is an external
Yeah.
part of it.
And so I think a lot of people, they very much think like, okay, so here are my colors, here are the images that I typically use, and like that's the brand. And so get really excited about like a brand photo shoot and working with a designer for like the logo and like the pairings and fonts and all of those things. But I want to talk more specifically about the role that this plays in selling. And I think on a fundamental level, people kind of like understood of like, oh yeah, brand association, like things along those lines. But I want to get into why does that actually really help you to sell your offer, but particularly how that's helpful as someone who might be a coach or a service provider, someone who is selling on the online space. Why is that such an important piece to have, and how do you get started with creating that?
Right. Okay. I think the main aspect of is the presentation, right? Now, if you're selling your offer, if you're presenting yourself in a professional or a business kind of a scenario, you would want people to take you seriously. You would want people to trust you. That's like the key word. And you want people to believe in what you believe in, you know? So I would take an example of like dressing up for work, right? You would present yourself, you'll put on good, clean clothes. You would want that impression that you are taking this job seriously. Similarly, with your brand, you would want to present it in a way that people trust your offer and believe in what you are there to do for them. So the presentation and the showcasing part comes with the visuals, because otherwise they wouldn't know your skill. Like, it's something so internal, you know, your talent, your gift. They wouldn't be able to see unless you showcase it and present it to them in a way that they understand.
No, absolutely. And so I think when it comes to visuals in particular, now if we're taking it back to maybe like 2021, 2022, it was very much, okay, like the Canva graphics and things that are like very much designed and polished in that sense. And if we're talking about the online space, things have taken a like more natural, organic type of feel as far as like the trends of like what people are looking to and for as far as the visuals go. And yet at the same time, they're still part of a brand element. So when it comes to the visuals and the branding that comes about with today, what are the things that you are seeing that people are more so drawn to? And what is it that people really need to keep in mind when they are crafting and developing their own visual branded identity?
That's a great point, because I feel like right now people are more into authentic, however often that word's been thrown around. They're looking for more genuine connection, more real connection, and that's where that more natural kind of a design and visual is sort of connecting with more people now. But design doesn't have to be perfect. Like, it's never about that. It's just about what you feel proud of showcasing, what you feel proud of designing and presenting to your clients and to the people that you care about, right? So if you feel like the natural, more genuine feel is something that represents your brand in its true essence, then sure, go ahead. If you feel like something more neutral or pastel is your essence, go ahead with that. So it's more about a feeling that you want them to feel, and the feeling that you want to feel when you showcase your brand. You don't want to be frustrated, like, okay, I'm just going to put black and white everywhere, and that's just the easiest, most convenient way of presenting. But more like, I'm proud of what I've created, and I'm going to put my effort, my side of, say, investment of time, energy, money, whatever that may look like, into giving this to the people and being there for them.
So when people are thinking about, okay, I need to come up with this visual identity, this brand, I know that's something that we've talked before about is, you know, that position and that pivoting from something that you create and develop on your own versus working with someone. Now, before we were talking about like the reputation that you have, the feelings that you like to elicit, those are things that I feel that you need to have a sense of beforehand. So when you're going to work with someone, it's my opinion, and you know, I would love to make sure that we're on the same page on this, but like, you need to have some type of understanding of who it is that you are, your business stands for, and the people that you're trying to attract before really deciding, like, okay, I'm going to go and spend my money and work with someone to help me craft and design this whole visual brand and identity and aesthetic. Just because I've seen it in so many different scenarios where you are just like, okay, I want to get going, I want to get started, I want to look professional. And then you come up with this whole brand and you realize that it's not actually in alignment with you or the people that you want to serve or all these other things. So it's a long roundabout way of saying, at what point, are you telling and encouraging people figure out some things and learn some more information first and then go work with someone? Like, what are those things that people like really need to have figured out? Not necessarily like a hard and fast rule, but what are some like elements that you feel as if when you have these things down, then you are ready to go work with someone and have the work that they produce together be something that's going to have a long shelf life versus something that feels not relevant and not aligned within, 6 months.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very important to get the fundamentals right and not depend on design to do all the heavy lifting for you, right? So the main fundamentals when you want to sell something is definitely like knowing your target audience. That's like you need to understand who you're selling to, right? If you want the offer to be a success, that's like the main thing. Understand what they want, understand who they are, where they are, why they would need this, and then nail down the pricing, right? And that's something that is a huge factor for an offer, right? And after that, understand your brand, like who you are, what you stand for, what you don't stand for, what are some things that you would want to be known for, right? So these things definitely come in handy when you want to take it to the next level, right? That's where the branding, marketing sort of aspect come into.
Yeah. And so I want to ground this a little bit because I think that people hear all the time, you got to know your audience, you got to know your market. I know that's one of the core foundational things that I do when I help people with their marketing and their messaging. You need to be very clear about who it is that you're talking to and about. But I think a lot of people are just like, okay, yep, like I know who I'm talking to, I know what it no, I'm trying to serve. But it's been my experience, and you tell me if that's been your experience also. People say that, yep, I know who my people are. And yet, when you start asking probing questions, it comes to light that, oh, you don't know them as deeply as you really could. So I wonder if you can give me an example of a time that you worked with someone you're just like, yeah, you don't know as much as you think you do. And what were some of the things that you suggested that they do before you even really start working together?
Yeah, you don't need to have all the answers, right? That's one thing that is really important. If you feel like you have some clarity, some sense, and then you want to step into it, that's like the best thing you can do, because design is not supposed to hold you back, right? You're building your brand is just one way to get to know it even better. So I feel like in the beginning, you can have some kind of idea as to where you want to lead that, but you don't need to have everything sorted out. And that's like a fear, right? Some people have like, I don't have everything in place, I think I'm not ready, or I think that I don't want to invest in branding at this point because I feel like it'll keep changing. But that's the whole point, right? Like you need to have some footing where you can explain to any professional, and then the brand strategy does its magic, right? You get into workshopping with them. They have their own way of taking, like a lot of designers have different way to do their strategy aspect, but they do that so that whatever you have becomes more solid.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you're looking for? Because I know that, at least with me, when I start working with someone who is maybe newer or hasn't had like a long track record of building up their business, there are things that I'm saying, go and find out this information so that we can understand your brand better. We can create messaging that's really going to connect. Because at least for me, in the work that I do, if you don't do this, then it's purely a guess. And that's fine if we know that it's guessing, but I don't want to live in the guessing land for too long. So for me, one of the things that I suggest if they haven't had a whole lot of experience is that I'm saying, okay, you need to learn more about your people. You need to do market research calls. You need to understand what are the scenarios that they are living in a day-to-day basis that make wanting to work with you feel like, no, I need to do this. This is going to solve my problem. Or I have them to say like, okay, get very specific about the types of issues that are going on for them and then identify what are the top ones. So that's kind of the work that I'm doing with them and I'm helping them to craft what that looks like. And so for me, I'm thinking that all of those things are going to be really important things to know when you're then doing design, because I know that if I'm going to work with someone and I'm going to say like these are all the things that you need to have, I also know in the back of my head that people, at least for me personally, they were just like, well, I want to work with someone who's gonna like guide me and like not help make me feel overwhelmed. And so then my brand needs to feel like it's going to be warm and comforting and then guiding so that when they come in, they're super stressed and overwhelmed. They need to or be able to see a brand that says like, oh, this is approachable. This is understanding. This is something that I can do. And so for me, I'm just like, that is going to take time of being able to understand and really see that. So that's for me where I'm like, oh, okay, it's not until I know that, then I realize like, oh, that's the brand identity, that's the visual direction that I need to be going. But it takes some time to be able to like work to get there, which is why like doing things yourself to me is like take that time to do it yourself. So I'm wondering like if you have similar type of thoughts, philosophies on these are things that I love to see people have worked on their own so that they have like this really great foundation. And then when they go to work with someone like you, it's like taking these pieces that they've already have and taking it to the next level. Now, to your point, like you said before, of course, when you work with a brand designer, they're going to be able to ask and pull out things. But I think that the real magic comes when you're like, I have these nuggets and these core things, and it's like making it into something that's like even bigger. So I'd love to know your thoughts about that, like how that comes about and comes together.
Yeah, the main thing is your differentiator. What makes you different from your competitors or your market, the rest of the industry? That's where you shine. Because if you are like everybody else, then it gets difficult to make you stand out because you don't, right? With design or with anything else. So understanding how you're different from, say, some XYZ who does the same thing as you is like I think the sweet spot. That if you have that ready and obviously have some kind of understanding as to who you want to work with and how, that's when the offer comes. Then I think that's great, and brand, when it comes to like the presentation and the visual aspect of it, we normally look at it as a person. Like if your brand were a person, how would it behave? Like having some kind of like behaviorism, like some psychology behind, like, would it be fun? Would it be serious? Would it be bold? Would it be like more corporate-y, or like how do you want to present? So having some kind of idea about that, because then that gives you some base, right? Some like hands and legs. So then we can, as brand designers, work on putting that information and giving it a face.
No. Yeah, no, for sure. And that makes so much sense. And when you come about with those different layers of things, I think another portion that comes into it, and you touched on it a little bit before, is like the pricing portion of it. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily take that into consideration. But if you're thinking about, say, in the luxury clothing item space, right? There is a connotation that comes there. And so there is a level of like visuals that are usually going in line with that. Unless there's also like, if there's like a high luxury brand that like has this quality of like, oh, they're like quirky or something, but it's still like done in like this very high level way. And so people will associate whatever it is that you do with like the visuals and like their perceived value and worth on that. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about, particularly for people who sell coaching in the one-on-one space or even high level, high touch service providers. What does that also look like of being able to say that, I'm charging, $10,000 or no, $5,000 or whatever else it is. That role that visuals play of being able to say, this is what I charge, and this is like the level of, visuals and other things that go along with that to help reinforce that this is something that is going to be worth it, worthwhile, reputable, all those things.
Yeah, yeah. I think the greatest example that you've just shared was comparing the coaching and the the service-based industry to a premium, say, clothing brand. I think you can do one exercise like after this if you are in that space. Pick up any brand that you like in that space, in any luxury space, right? So when you decode certain aspects of it, like how they're presenting themselves, like let's say something like okay, just any brand, right? The main aspect of it generally is the minimalism, right? They don't scream at you, they just whisper in a very you know, in a very tempting way, right? And there was this coaching call that I had where there's this thing like to take the horse near the water or to the water so that the horse drinks the water, right? But the main idea for us is not to make the horse drink the water, is for the horse to be thirsty. That's our job, to make the horse thirsty rather than it drinking the water. I'm actually explaining, but my whole point is my whole point is to understand what they are doing, the luxury brands, what they're doing that's working for them, and you sort of like replicate that feeling into your service-based business. So just an activity, like take any poster or any social media reel or anything that you like about them, and try to replicate it and see that, okay, how would that make sense for my industry, for my brand? Take that as sense and add your own spin to it, and just see if, I'm not saying that copy their whole essence and do that like entire thing for your brand, but just like a post, just like an activity to see if that sort of gives you some kind of an understanding as to how you look like or what you want to
Yeah, no, absolutely.
for them.
And that's even something that I have people to do when I'm working with them with, marketing and messaging of what is it about other things that really call out to you, because it usually speaks to like, oh, okay, I like this style, I like this direction. And so that gives you a baseline of like, okay, how I can do that for me. Because we're not talking about plagiarism. We're not talking about saying like, oh yeah, we're going to rip this brand and like do all of the things that they do. No, it's more about saying, okay, when I look at this elicits some feelings and emotions for me. I like the feelings and emotions that come up when I look at this. So getting all of those pieces and all of those elements together, saying like, okay, what is that commonality? What is that common thread between all of those? And then what does that look like for me? Because it's obviously something that's really speaking to me. And then, of course, because it's not just about you, it's also about the people that you're trying to serve, because that's the whole point of it. Like the brand isn't for you to feel good and pretty and great. The point of all of this, where the messaging, the visuals, everything else, the point of all of that is to make sure that the people that you want to serve are able to see themselves. So you look at all of those things saying like, yep, these are all the things that I like. Is this also something that my core people are also going to be attracted to? Because if you do all that work and you realize like actually that's not what my people like or want, then you've done all of that for naught. Which is why, to go back to our initial point, it's so important to be very clear on who your people are and what it is that they want, so that you can merge those two elements together.
Yeah. I've done that for camera angles and stuff. Like if I like something, like how this is shot, I keep that in my mind, and when I'm shooting something, I use those angles and stuff. So that's like an example of how I use something for video, which I try to be good at, and learn from what people are doing and what I enjoy watching, and sort of taking that as inspiration and using
Yeah.
that for my.
Let's talk about content too. So we talked about just like at a high level visuals and identity. I know that a conversation that we've had before is about, trends, things that are working, that we're seeing working in the online space. We talked a little bit earlier about the authenticity of it. And I think a lot of times people might still associate, like the visuals and the branding with like, okay, like here's my logo and my colors and things of that nature. But it could also be video style. It could also be a lot of other things. So when you're looking at the visual element of it that's outside of like the colors or outside of, the logo, when you're thinking about social media content, whether it's video, stories, whatever it is, how is it that people can start thinking about creating and establishing a brand in that sense?
I think you can definitely start with the colors and fonts and everything and be consistent with it. That's something that is easy for people to like associate you with. But I think beyond that is more about your presence and leaving those little breadcrumbs, right? Like what you believe in. And like for me, even before I had a brand, I used to post a lot of stuff around women entrepreneurship and empowerment and stuff like that. And there were like a couple of friends come and tell me that, you're posting a lot about these things and stuff. And I didn't honestly notice that because it's something that came naturally to me. So then now I've sort of used that and used that kind of an energy that I have, and then I've used it to leverage it for my business because I connect with female energy more. So I feel like when you do these trial and error techniques, it definitely helps you understand yourself a little better. And when it comes to like being present on Instagram consistently, it is very difficult to keep up with the trends, keep up with the algorithm. It keeps changing. So the only thing constant is what you believe in and what you stand up for, and the people that you want to work with, right? And that also sometimes keeps changing because you sometimes feel like you want to pivot and all of that, and that's completely fine. But at least the essence of it, like your why remains constant, right? For me, it was working with more women entrepreneurs and helping them grow and be a part of their journey. So that is constant. Maybe the colors have shifted a little bit. Maybe like the way of presentation have shifted a little bit. Maybe I'm doing more video now or whatever that is. But it keeps adapting, I would say. But you have to have some kind of a seed for it to start and then grow to becoming something more full.
No, I absolutely agree. There are people that I've seen, in the space who have grown and evolved their brand, and the colors for some things they've grown and like evolved. Maybe there's more hues, different ways that they represent it, more accent colors. Like there's that portion of it, but because they were in active use of their brand and their positioning, and that they were constantly working on, these are my values, these are the things that I like, these are the things that I believe in, these are the things that my people really like, and they were in active use of it. Every time they decided like, okay, it's time to refresh, it was because they had so much information and they had been working so much, and they say, like, these are things that like I had been working on and really worked. These are the things that I have been testing and trying and then didn't necessarily work out the way that I wanted. And so when I do this next iteration, this next up level of the brand, it's like, oh, okay, like I can take all of these elements. These are the values that I have, that whenever I talk about these things, I know that my people are definitely also very much on board with. So like, how do I represent that in, whether it's the visuals, the things that I say, all of those things, to like that next portion. So maybe it's the visual identity and you have your colors and you have the logo and all of those things, but then you decide like, okay, and I'm gonna do a brand photo shoot, and because, like for you, for example, you said female entrepreneurs who are growing and evolving, you might have a photo shoot where, you might have other women that are a part of it to show like that community empowerment, that particular angle, like how you can identify and put all of those things in. But that comes from like being observant, noticing, because as you said, a lot of times we don't always notice or perceive like all the things that are like, oh yeah, like that's very on brand for you, and you're just like, that it is. It's just a part of what it is that you do, and you don't necessarily always notice that. So like being able to then like do all of those things and then also have someone else to tell you like, oh yeah, like I see this thread going through, that's super helpful. So I just have a couple last things to really talk to you about. For the person who is deciding that like, okay, I want to have a brand, I want to be known for a particular thing, I don't know where to start because I'm starting this all on my own. We gave them a couple initial things of being able to like know who your target audience is, know what it is that you value. What are some other things that you would love for people to start doing when they are in that mode of I'm establishing my brand for myself?
I think what we started off with having the basics ready, the foundations ready, right? Beyond that, it would be great if you had some kind of an understanding about what you are, like what your brand essence is, and being in alignment with how you can help them and what your target audience really wants. So just dialing back a little bit, when you said that understanding yourself is important, and then you sort of understand what the other people want, and you can be in alignment with both of these things. When you're lost, that's what happens. Like when you're lost, you don't know if your audience would like something or not, and then you would feel like, okay, I'm going to post a certain way so that they like it, because you don't know what you really want or what you really stand for. You go off like, okay, no, this post went viral, so I'm just gonna do that. Or this post, a couple of them said that that was something that they really enjoyed watching, so let me do more of that. Because you don't have the essence that what you are, what you wanna be for other people. You just go off what someone else says, or what the algorithm says, or what the numbers that you see on your Instagram, right? So understanding your taste and understanding the kind of brand that you want to be is really important. So the most, like, I think biggest example would be Apple, right? They know that they're for the crazy ones. They know that they stand for innovation, right? They know that whatever they do, it's so simple, subtle, and clear, but also different from their entire competitors, right? So they exactly know who they are and they stick to it. So similarly, I think when you understand what you are, even when you feel like you're a deviant, that sort of like gives you an understanding of how you want to move forward and do that.
Yeah.
Similar.
No, it's funny because I have worked with and talked with people who felt like I've worked with people on a couple ends of the spectrum. So because I've come from a background where it was a little bit more corporate, been doing it for years and years, I also attract people who have that same type of vibe. And so it's very much like very clean. It's like very to the point and direct in some sense. And so like that's what their brand kind of looks like. It's like, I don't want to say like it's stiff and formal because it's not necessarily that, but it's like traditional in that sort of sense with its own unique flair, because of course everyone always has that. But then on the other side of the spectrum, I do also attract a group of people who are just like, they identify as like I'm a little woo, I'm a little out there. I do like all types of like interesting, different things, like very creative types. Like they're also attracted to me because they're like, oh, she seems like very grounded, and like she could take like all of my everything and just kind of like ground it and center it into something that I can do something with. And so when I look at like each of those two groups of people, I see them thinking of the identity of like, okay, this is who I am, and I want to showcase that and put it out there in a way that's gonna like really resonate with people, so people can really see what it is that I do. And so again, it's coming from the how do I show up on video? And if they're a little chaotic, then they bring some of that energy to that. Or if they're just like, I'm more like straight to the point, I'm like direct, I'm a little bit more formal, then like bring that energy too. Because there are some people that are just like, I don't want to mess around with people who are like, here one place, over there the other place. Like I don't want that. I want like the stability of that. And some people are very much attracted to that. And other people are just like, no, I want someone who's like just as like creative and like flowy as me. And so they appeal to that too. So it's not like there's one particular way to do it, but you do need to be very clear like, this is who I am, this is how I come across, and this is what people really want to see when they work with someone like that. I know that I can appeal to both. And so some of the things that I need to do and I need to work on more in my own visual identity is like having that grounded piece, but also like show enough of like, and if you are, identify as like I'm a little creative and like I'm can flow with you as well, but I'm also gonna help ground you because that's probably why you're attracted to looking at me because like there's something like very grounding about her presence that like I feel like I need to like tether like all of the creativeness. Um yeah.
So basically, like
Right. It's
create
just
yourself.
you just know, but you have to know enough to kind of know that. And so that's I think part of what I'm trying to say at the end of this is like you do need to test, you do need to try, you do need to experiment. I'm just coming off of this whole season of experimentation thing, so definitely go out and try that and do those things. But when it comes to visuals, I just think that so many people get very overwhelmed. People are very much like, I have to have an aesthetic. How do I photograph with an aesthetic? How do I have video that have like the right aesthetic, the right things, the right this, the right that? And I think it very much comes down to like, okay, what do you like? What do your people like? Study that, practice that, and then go and then work with someone else that can help you bring that to life. Have a good baseline of like, okay, I know these types of things first, and then can decide and go and build and grow and experiment off of that. But I'd love to know your thoughts as we wrap that up.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it in. I feel like the whole idea of doing is so overwhelming when you're not into visuals, when you don't have any idea, but you still want to like get your flair, right? You still want to be seen. So it's really important to understand that know, like, trust factor. Like first get people to know you and then get people to like you by consistently showing up, being there for them, having that reciprocity do its magic, and then eventually they will trust you and also buy from you, because that trust is there. So it just goes one step at a time, but take that baby step in the first place because it is overwhelming for everyone, right? It is very difficult and a lot of people are doing it and it seems like it's easy because that's the version that probably we are seeing, but behind the scenes it is definitely very, very difficult to like keep up also at the same time. So experimentation is the way to go, like trial and error. Right now I'm so like on my socials I'm like really slow and I'm still trying to like get things up. So because we have our seasons, we have our breaks, which is absolutely fine. When you're busy or when you're held up with something else, that's absolutely fine. That doesn't mean that you stop doing it, because you're not showing up anymore. But it all depends on your speed. But the whole point is to get yourself out there and actually take action without hesitation. So yeah, stop living in your head and take those ideas and put it in action so that people also know how good you are. Like, you already know that, how good you are, how great you are with what you do. Give that energy to other people because it's a gift,
Yeah,
honestly.
the visual identity, the visual branding, it all will come from doing. I love that. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me today. If people would like to learn more about you and the work that you do, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay, so I am on socials. I'm on Instagram at zainab.quresh.design. And definitely very active on Instagram. And now I'm starting to be more active on LinkedIn as well. On LinkedIn, I'm just Zainab Quresh. So, yeah, Zainab Quresh Design and Zainab Quresh. And yeah, I think the links will be down there. So, if you feel like you want to ask any more questions or have like a nice chat about design and branding, then I'm your girl.
Yes, all of those links, they will be in the show notes, so definitely go and check her out there. Sanam, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for everyone to start putting everything they learned here in this conversation into action.
Yeah, for me too. Can't wait to hear from you and from all the listeners. And thank you so much for inviting
Bye.
me. See you on the other side.
If you want more marketing that works right in your inbox, head to the show notes and sign up for the email list. You'll be the first to know how you can work with me on mastering your marketing.